my thinking is kind of like getting further and further away from running my business in China because of all these regulations, these policies.
So what's the plan in Phuket? How are you gonna make some money there? Is that the plan? You set up a business, or are you there for a holiday and then you're gonna move on somewhere else, or is it you're gonna try and make it work in Phuket? Hello there, internet. It's Pete here from Thairish Times. What's the story? I've got one for you today. We're gonna interview a man named Callum from London, England, who's spent 11 years living in China. So we're gonna do a deep dive into life in China, what Callum was doing for work there, what life is like there, how was he treated there as a foreigner. We're going to get into all those questions. And recently, Callum has also moved from China to Phuket, Thailand. So we're going to get into that one as well. Why Phuket? What's the plan for work? How are you going to make money over there? So all interesting stuff coming up here in this interview. And I'm going to change the topic completely now. Literally 5 minutes ago, I saw Argentina lift the World Cup, and I'm absolutely delighted for them. If you're a football fan, you would have been happy with that result, especially Lionel Messi, best player in the world, lifting the World Cup. Fairy tale story, absolutely brilliant. And of course, as an Irish man, I'm never going to support France after what they did to us in 2009. Thierry Henry, that handball, stopping Ireland from going to the World Cup. Little old Ireland. We're not going to get into the World Cup for the next 50 years. I'll be an old man next time I see Ireland in the World Cup. So I'll always remember that. 2009, I was 22 or 23, and I was sitting in a pub looking at Thierry Henry handle that ball, nearly crying. I was disgusted. So France, you're not my biggest fans, especially in the World Cup final. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Callum, thanks very much for doing this. I'm very excited to hear your story today, and I appreciate you coming on. So you spent 11 years in China. Tell us about that, and also tell us where you're from first.
Yeah, so I was born in London, um, and I was just listening to your video actually, and I think we around about the same time maybe left our native countries to pursue a life in Asia. Right? You said you was 23. I think I was just a few days after my 24th birthday, I left the UK to go on a little adventure, I guess, with some friends from university. So we started in India and we spent maybe a month, 6 weeks in India, just traveling around. I mean, prior to that, I've never been anywhere like India. It's just kind of, you do the package holidays and Crete and the Spanish holidays, all of that. America one time. So yeah, India was completely different. And then after that, we headed into China. Traveled around China for a bit. Um, Beijing, kind of went to Beijing, a bit more inland to Xi'an to see the terracotta warriors.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, we went a few more places, but I kind of found a little base in Shanghai.
What was it in Shanghai that made you decide to stay?
Well, I guess kind of being a city boy from London, um, I guess I found Shanghai similar in ways as a massive city and a new city that I haven't experienced. It's just enormous, and there's so many things to find and interesting people that you're meeting all the time.
And did you work there?
Well, I went to Hong Kong, kind of say it was a kind of a farewell to my friends that I was traveling with. Like I said, they was traveling on to Southeast Asia and then to Australia. I wasn't too keen, and my funds were running low. I think at that point in Hong Kong, I probably had about $300 or $400. So I met a few people in Shanghai, and they put me onto a job. It was a training center in Shanghai, so I kind of done that gig.
What did that involve?
It involved a lot of weekend and evening work. So you're basically um, teaching children from they have their own curriculum set up. And you're teaching children kind of like a 45 minute class. Um, Teaching them phonics and sentence structures and vocabulary. The kids were aged between, I guess, like 6 years old and 12 years old. The salary in Shanghai is, well, China for teaching is pretty good.
What kind of money are you getting out of China?
It's ridiculous now, but I mean, at the time, I mean, we're talking this was 2000, 2011, 12, 13, making over $2,000 a month,
Okay.
easy. And then on top of that, you're doing some extras like privates,
Yeah.
which you're making like about $20 an hour, easy. That's kind of the low end.
So let's talk about your life in China. I've often wondered, like, what's it like there? I've met a couple of people that have lived there, but this is the first time we've ever got anyone on the channel that has lived in China long term, right? So you spent 11 years in China. What was it like? Tell us about the people, the culture. Talk about that for us. I'm very interested.
Well, from the get-go, I already told you I was very attracted to like Shanghai, the big city lights, and it's kind of a vibrant, affluent city. And the people I was meeting um, were Chinese people and foreigners living there, mainly teachers, kind of doing the same thing that I was doing. But you get a little circle, and it becomes like kind of a habit. There's loads of you finish work. I mean, you're a young guy. I mean, I was at a time I'm like 20, 24, 25. So I like to enjoy the nightlife, going out, having some beers, eating food, always finding the good kind of deals, the happy hours, the food deals. And the next day on the weekdays, you don't really have much to do because you don't start work until the evening time. So you can kind of sit the hangover off in the morning. So I mean, that was kind of my life in China, in Shanghai, um, for about 4 or 5 years. Just kind of teaching, earning good money, going out, meeting people, socializing.
How about the cost of living in China? Is it expensive?
Compared to Phuket, yeah, well, Shanghai is anyway. But wages kind of make up for that. I think if you was a teacher in Shanghai at the moment, you're easily making 4,000, 4,000, $4,500 a month, no problem. Um, and then renting an apartment, that would be between like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, maybe 1,000, maybe $1,200 a month, something like this.
How about safety in China? Is it a safe place? Do you ever have to watch your back and someone might steal your phone or your wallet or anything like that?
I mean, that's one of the great things that I did enjoy about China. Just very safe. Never, anytime, anywhere, anytime. You're not worrying about anyone out to harm you, out to try to steal your belongings, anything like that. Everyone's yeah. There's not a culture built like that. There's no one, no one doing that. There's no crime that I've seen.
What does the average Chinese person think about Westerners? How do they view Westerners? Like, are we these enemies? Like, are we these rivals? Or do they just not really think too much about us? Or how do they view Westerners?
Good question. I think I would say I've kind of like noticed a shift in maybe thinking, maybe behavior towards foreigners over the last few years. I would say in general, like people are, like I said, there's no crime or anything like that. Crime is very low. People are generally polite, and I mean, most people are welcoming-ish. Um, Arriving in China, though, years ago, I think it was a lot more, people were more welcome, wanting to come up and talk to you and get to know you and things like that. It just seemed like, yeah, Chinese people were a bit more accessible. I feel like over the last few years, maybe that's kind of dropped off. I'm not sure if it's anything to do with, messages been sent by, news outlets, state media. I'm not sure. Just kind of a note, something that I've noticed. Some people, especially the taxi drivers, whenever I get in a taxi in my wife's hometown, you're always getting into a conversation with the taxi drivers about how great China is and how bad America is. Um, it's always a funny conversation. It's not something that I really enjoy talking about or debating or anything like that. But it's always just kind of just making a note. When I get into a taxi in my wife's hometown, be prepared for the political talks.
So Chinese people are kind of up to date on politics, are they? Are they following world politics?
I mean, they follow as much as the media allows
Allows
them
them
or
to follow, yeah.
wants them. They don't have access to the bigger world of media like we have the internet, television. So their views are kind of one way kind of thinking, um, and there'll be no kind of no real critical thinking. What is said by the media is kind of a, a given.
And how were you treated by the Chinese people as a foreigner in China?
I was treated fairly. I was treated fairly. I don't really have too many complaints. I think maybe I mean I'm talking about like working for companies in China in general. Maybe the way they kind of manage things um, is kind of a bit off, a bit weird. I can't put a word on it, but there's always everything was always like kind of last minute, and everything had to be kind of rush, rush, rush. Like they would ask you to do something that could have been asked, a week in advance, but they ask you to do it then and there with no time to prepare.
How did you find the management style in China? Did you find it quite autocratic, where one person makes the decision, goes down the hierarchy, the people at the bottom have very little say in what they're actually doing?
Yeah, the teachers will have no say in anything really. This is what you're doing today. Get on with it. Don't ask any questions. So I did find that a little annoying. And I think a lot of foreigners did as well. Like there's a lot of foreigners there that wanted to have an input and say into how things run. And there's foreigners there, including myself, that eventually, you're doing the same kind of job day in, day out, and it gets repetitive. So you're kind of looking like, okay, so what is the future here after a few years? You're like, what is the future in this industry? Am I just going to keep doing this? I know there are people there, like in the 50s, and I'm kind of looking at them like, you've been doing this for so long, you've not moved up in any kind of higher position. You're just, doing that same kind of job that a 20 something, early 30-year-old is doing. I think after a while, I was like pondering this. By the time I was like 27, 28, I'm thinking, what's next? I can't keep doing this because it's not really leading anywhere. So I met my wife in Shanghai, who was also a teacher. Um, and after a while, we decided to open our own um, training center.
Is your wife Chinese?
She is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
This is not in Shanghai. This is in another province, maybe about 3.5 hours by train. It's called Anhui Province. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or
No,
familiar.
don't know. No. Tell us
Okay.
about it. Okay, you opened a training center in Anhui province. What was that like?
It was a bit crazy at first because we had this idea in Shanghai and we are kind of like discussing it, planning it. And at that time, this was 2015. We opened in 2016. But at that time, there was no high speed trains directly to my wife's hometown. So we had to get on a bus from Shanghai to our hometown. It was like an 8 hour bus trip, like dusty, bumpy roads. Just thinking about it now, actually, yeah, quite crazy. Considering like you just jump on a train, nice, comfortable seats, 3.5 hours, you're there, Shanghai, and vice versa. Definitely different, but at the time, it's kind of what I wanted. I kind of wanted to progress in something in business because that's always kind of been an interest of mine, pursuing something business wise. So with we set up shop, a training center in my wife's hometown. I say it's a small city. I mean, in China, it's a small city of like 1 million people. Um, I mean, in China, that's considered small.
That's crazy. And like, I've never
Uh,
heard of it before. There's probably cities, 10, 20 million people in China that I've never heard of. People watching this have probably never heard of as well.
yeah, right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's a huge population. Yeah, very different, smaller city, but like I said, at the time, I was ready for a change and to take on a new challenge. So yeah, that's what we did. 2016, we opened the doors to our little training school. Yeah, um, and it was good. It was fun. Um, because we both got lots of experience in the industry, so we've got all these ideas on how we want to operate the school, and how we're gonna improve the English in my wife's for the kids in my wife's home town.
Like you're in Phuket now. So what happened to that business?
So I guess like 2016, 2017, 18, well, 17 and 18, they were like the glory days. Two, yeah, 2019, right up until the end of that. They were the glory days. I hired other foreign teachers because, we just had a massive growth in student numbers. I think by the beginning of 2019, we had like 400 students. So yeah, growing very rapidly. Brought in more teachers. Things are going well. Business is going well. And I've always had ideas of expansion. I never wanted to kind of just stop at one place. Like, why not grow? Let's see how far we can take things. What level can we take things? Let's open up a second campus. Let's open up a third campus. So, when I've got other teachers in place, this is kind of the perfect time in my mind to open the doors to another campus because all the students are um, being taken care of by another foreign teacher, and we have Chinese staff. So my time's a bit more freer. Um, yeah, so I was planning. I was making plans in 2019 to open a second campus, and then we all know what happened in the end of 2019.
So tell us about the whole COVID saga for you in China back in 2020. What was that like? I imagine you probably went mental.
I was in the UK at the time for
Ah, okay.
Christmas, and it was like in January. There's like some reports. We was leaving the UK middle of January. My wife was hearing reports of a virus and all that. I didn't really think much of it. We arrived back in middle of January, just because it's like Chinese New Year around that time, and then more reports are coming out about this virus in Wuhan. Um, and yeah, around this time is Chinese New Year, so our business is closed anyway for the holidays, and yeah, I think the news is spread like internationally. Wuhan, massive, lockdowns and infections, people dying on the streets and in hospital. The whole city was getting locked down, and we're getting ready to open after Chinese New Year. I think it was sometime in maybe late February, but we're told by the government that we're not allowed to open. And I was thinking, okay, that's fine, just an extended holiday for a few weeks, a month maybe. No, no, it wasn't a case. We was in lockdown there for about 5 months, I believe. 5 months we wasn't allowed to. One person from each household was allowed to go to the local vegetable and fruit markets, little supermarkets, to buy your food supply and all of that. One person from each household, and there were security guards on the gates on our complex. Um, so yeah, that was pretty difficult. I was going insane. I was calling at the time I was calling the British embassy, like, because I think in the UK at the time, the virus hadn't spread as much or wasn't as big a concern. So I was thinking, how how long is this going to go on for in China? Is it worth just um, leaving China, going to the UK, and come back when everything calms down? I didn't go for that option, but my other two foreign teachers did. One went back to South Africa, and then another went back to Georgia. So yeah, we weren't allowed to open until like June 2020, and even when we were allowed to open, there was a lot of kind of restrictions in place. Face masks and yeah, just a lot of restrictions.
So then what happened?
Uh,
So you're in Phuket now, right? So you said the business is still open, but in the email to me, you said you've left China. So what happened there?
so there's been a massive kind of clampdown with training schools in China over the last few years. I think like 2018, 19, there was some like training schools, like the bosses, reports of bosses running off with large sums of money from the parents. So I think this at this time the government started to look more closely at training schools, and I think it's 2021 when the government introduced more regulations to training schools. Training schools were not allowed to open on weekends anymore, and we're not allowed to open on holidays. And these times are quite big for training schools because you're making a lot of money on the weekends. A lot of students coming in on the weekends, and then holidays. So we're not allowed to open at them times anymore. There's other regulations like we're not allowed to teach from foreign textbooks. My wife told me the government are coming in and saying we're not allowed to celebrate any Western holidays anymore, like Christmas, Halloween.
And why is that? Do you think, is there some kind of, I mean, Christmas and Halloween, when I was teaching, it's very good to be able to teach those themes, those holidays, because kids get wrapped up, especially Halloween. You can talk about monsters, you can tell ghost stories, and it's a way to actually teach the language. It's a great way of getting a story across, when the kids get engrossed in a story. So why would they stop those? They don't want Western culture and Chinese kids being influenced by Western culture, or what?
Yeah, good question. I mean, like you said, it is a great way. And for many years, the schools that I've been working in have been celebrating these holidays, Christmas, Halloween, Easter. We're doing activities with the kids. But recently, for 2021, the government have said we're not allowed to celebrate these holidays anymore. And I think it is to kind of, you know, not influence kids with maybe Western ideologies. I haven't looked too much into it on why, but
Yeah.
this is what my wife has said. This is not what we're allowed to do, and kind of by that time, I was kind of sick of it. So kind of like my thinking is kind of like getting further and further away from running my business in China because of all these regulations, these policies, COVID, and all of the stuff that's happening. My mind is going elsewhere. I can't see the business growing, so I'm just kind of getting sick of it, to be honest. So I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so you're in Phuket, Thailand now. Tell us that story.
I mean, being in China, Like I said, I was just getting sick of everything, and it wasn't really a way to live life anymore. There's so many restrictions still going on there, still going on. Um, yeah, even like traveling about, trying to travel, you'll still get you're getting booking a hotel, you're getting they'll call you back, or saying your booking has been cancelled, and the reason why is because you're a foreigner. So like a lot of hotels are not accepting foreigners to stay there. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I just had enough of it. So I just said to my wife, we've got to go. I can't stay here, and being a foreigner in China, especially this small place where I haven't really made a connection with anyone. There's not really many foreigners living there. I mean, my Mandarin is okay, um, but still making a connection with the local people there, I found it very difficult. So I kind of felt lonely there as well. Getting more xenophobic, like trying to book hotels, asking if I'm a foreigner. I have to do these extra steps that Chinese don't have to do. I have my second son was born in 2021. Because I'm a foreigner, I wasn't allowed in the hospital to see my son, so I didn't even meet him until like 10 days after he was born. He had to stay in the hospital for a while because he was born a bit early. Yeah, and all these things are just adding up. Um, so I just had to leave, and I arrived in Phuket. Well, like I arrived in Bangkok um, July this year. Um, and the day after I arrived, actually, my mum flew out to see us. It's been 2.5 years since I've seen her because she's not allowed to. She wasn't allowed into China, and if I left China, it would be extremely difficult for me to go back into China. So yeah, 2.5 years. That was good.
I know that feeling. I went 3 years without seeing my parents because of this whole bloody fiasco. So I know what it's like to meet up after a long time. Yeah. So what's the plan in Phuket? How are you gonna make some money there? Is that the plan? You set up a business, or are you there for a holiday and then you're gonna move on somewhere else, or is it you're gonna try and make it work in Phuket?
So like I said, I've been here for well since July. So what's that? Maybe 5 months now. Um, and you can see by my t-shirt, I've set up a business a website. It's called Phuket High Times. What the website aims to do is it's a directory of every weed cannabis shop in Phuket. So I want a place where people can easily find um, shops, and I know it's easy to find shops. You just walk around, but maybe there's a certain strain that someone wants, and they can click on our website. This is all being integrated now. The website hasn't fully finished.
And how are you gonna make an income from that website? Is it advertising or what is it?
I mean, there's a number of ways I thought of. I don't want to give everything away, but yeah, I mean, advertising would be one of the ways. It wouldn't be the main source of the income. Um, Also be selling, merchandise products, maybe travel, because there's also with any new industry, there's always industries that orbit it, right? So next, we're going to be seeing going to see the health leisure industry um, get involved in the cannabis scene, like the CBD, the oils, the spas, the therapeutic sessions, maybe people microdosing and therapy, and there's just going to be a massive industry surrounding this cannabis. It's not just going to be the weed shop. It's going to be this and that.
So let's talk about just the legalization of it, because last time when I left in end of August, beginning of September, THC was not legalized yet. It was there's this kind of big gray area. As far as I know, there's no legislation that legalizes ganja. The government haven't drafted legislation yet. So, and if we're talking about trade.
Well, this is a bill that is put forward to the government, and they're in discussions um, now about it. There's oppositions, but like you said, there's no real regulations surrounding it. And maybe they brought out kind of the legalization with cannabis a bit too early without kind of thinking about the regulations surrounding it. You've got the tobacco industry that have regulations about maybe advertising. You have the alcohol industry that have regulations about drink driving. So I don't think there was a clear thought out plan about regulations. And from what I'm reading and understanding, the opposition party, they want more regulations, legislations put in put in place. I mean, to maybe safeguard the citizens, right? So I mean, this hasn't been kind of or nothing's been finalized, but talks are happening. So I guess we're going to find out more in the future. But I mean, there's a massive, I mean, the floodgates have kind of opened now. I don't think we're going to see cannabis. My personal opinion, I don't think we're going to see it criminalized again.
And how does your wife feel about living in Thailand?
Definitely apprehensive to leave China. She's an only child. She's very close to her parents. Um, she misses them. They speak every day. We're gonna try and get them over here in January. They've been kind of looking after the business in China for the time being. But yeah, she's very close to her family, her parents. They speak every day on the phone. As I said, I've got two young boys as well, so the grandparents miss the grandkids.
And is there ever like a plan B for if this doesn't work out? Like, what is the plan B for it? If, say, you just doesn't make enough income to support your family in Phuket, are you going to try and do something else in Phuket, or would you consider going back to China, or would you go back to the UK?
You mean the website, you mean?
Yeah.
I'll give it a go, you know? Few dares.
But there's no plan B then if it just doesn't get the traction that you want.
Well, like I said, I've been developing skills for the last year or so in web development and other programming languages, and I'm still learning as well. So I mean that is the plan B, literally. Funding wise, money's okay for the foreseeable future, so there's no real problem there. But obviously, definitely need a plan B, and that would be the plan B. I mean, business first, and then secondly, plan B would be to maybe work for a company using the skills that I've developed, or starting up another business in that area.
Has your wife been back to the UK?
She's been 2 times. She hasn't been back since 2019.
And what does she think of the UK?
It's a good question. Good question. I'm still waiting for the answer, to be honest.
Yeah, she might be a bit. If she hasn't said anything, maybe she might not be too fond of the UK.
Maybe I think it's just one of them. Both times we went to the UK, it's been over Christmas for a few weeks. So like it's a proper experience, living in the UK and everything that comes with it. It's more like a holiday for her. So, from what she's seen is kind of her opinions from like this a holiday. I mean, it's going to be different if she lived there for like 6 months. So,
And what do you think about Thailand?
I think she's a bit worried at first. I think she likes it now. She's getting into the swing of things. She's got a little routine going on. She takes care of my little one in the morning. She has a workout routines, takes my son to the park. My other son, 4 years old, he's in a Thai school. Yeah, I think my wife's liking it. At first, she was a bit like, what are we doing? But she's getting into the swing of things.
Anyway, Callum, I wish you all the best. Thanks very much. And this is the part where I do my own little plug as well. subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about our story here, Callum's story. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Cheers.